Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Friday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. It's 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, so John Schneider, he's trying to walk back his statements about Joe Biden. And the first thing that comes to my mind is anybody, if you watch my channel, you know I've been in recovery for 17 years. Well, a lot of the videos I made, I talk about everything I did, and I mean some embarrassing, hideous, shameful stuff. And I think admitting my past faults and bad choices, I think is good for me, and it's good for other people watching, for people, to admit your failures, to admit when you said something or did something wrong, learning from it. I can't stand when people don't take responsibility. So John Schneider, and I hate to be like a typical Democrat, but it reminds me of Donald Trump again. He'll say something one day, and then the next day, he'll do something, and then he'll just flat out deny it. Like, if he denies it enough, it'll disappear. And that is one thing I can't have any respect for. I don't like John Schneider, but I would have a tiny bit more respect for him if he just owned up to what he said and said, look, I'm ticked off. I have a different political view. But he didn't. He tried to walk it back and spin it. He basically said he never said what now the Secret Service is looking into his case. So, and he's saying, okay, so let me start here. This is Code 18, Section 871 of why you're not supposed to say what he said, and it's a felony to willfully or knowingly threaten to take the life or inflict great bodily harm upon the President of the United States. Okay, so what he said, was that threatening the life? If somebody said that to me, Daryl, you should be publicly hung. They're all ticked off at me. And I got these posts in my comment. Would I take that as a threat? If somebody next door, hell yeah, I would take. Of course, if somebody was angry at me and said that I should be publicly hung, yeah, I think I would take that as a threat. Okay, so here's his response now. This is John Schneider's response. Seriously, folks, I said no such thing. Really? I absolutely did not call for an act of violence or threaten the U.S. president. Let's see. Hanging, that would qualify. Publicly hanging would threaten as an act of violence. It would also, how can you not qualify that as an act of violence? Hanging somebody, taking the life with a rope around that. I can't see that as any other thing but an act of violence and a threat. But I absolutely did not call for an act of violence or threaten the U.S. president. See, this is where I just lose complete. If I had any shred of respect for John Schneider before, it's gone now. Because now he's just flat out lying and denying. It can't even own up to what he did. Okay, so he goes on to say, and then people brought up the fact, that being called to publicly hang somebody is a call to violence. And he says this. He says this. He says, in my position, which I am entitled to have. Remember yesterday's video? I said, in this country, you have freedom of speech. You can say anything except one thing, man. There's one thing you can't say in this country. Billions of other things. You could say anything about anything, but there's just one thing you can't say. And this guy said it. So no, you're not entitled to have this position. You're not entitled to. You're entitled to have this position, but you're not entitled to publicly call for this position. Okay, so he says, so the leaders of our nation in Washington have lost their way. In my position, which I am entitled to have, that some of our nation's leaders in Washington have lost their way and corruption runs rampant. That's what he says. That's what he says he meant by being publicly hung. Really? How does that translate into you and your family, your kin, your son should both be executed? How does that translate? In my position, which I am entitled to have, that some of our nation's leaders in Washington have lost their way and corruption runs rampant. both on our nation's borders and abroad. Transparency and accountability must happen in order for our constitutional our Constitution to survive. There is no threat, implied or otherwise, in that statement. Really? Really? So, John, if somebody said, you and your family this should happen to you and your family, you wouldn't take that as a threat. No, it's a nuanced belief that somebody doesn't like you. Come on, man. Come on, stop it. Oh, if you do something, just own up to it, man. At least have the dignity, the responsibility, and this is the manly part. If you own up to it, because somebody yesterday said, "Oh, this is manly," or this is the other Trump supporters call him a patriot for doing this. Really, executing the president of the United States is patriot. No charges, no court, no nothing. Just publicly hang them. That's what patriots do. That's what men do. Really, not in this country. Okay, so here's some other interesting comments he said about George. He's defending George Santos, probably the biggest liar there ever was in politics. And he was kicked out. He was a senator, right? He was kicked out of the Senate, it was the congressman. I'm not even sure, and I really don't care. But this is what John Schneider said about George Santos. The press is in an uproar. Again, he's taking that Trump thing, that it's all fake news and lying news media, of course. So that's what he's probably going to say about this latest statement, that the lying news media is trying to spin what he said, being publicly hung, that they're taking it the wrong way, that he really meant that what did he say here? He really meant that there has to be accountability and there's corruptions in our nation's borders. Really? Is that how that translated? It's the lying media that spun that around, right? Wow, man. Wow. It's just like they're on a different planet. What color is the sky in your world, John Schneider? That's a question I have for you. Okay. Here's this comment about George Santos. The press is in an uproar about George Santos and an alleged fake resume. George Santos pretty much admitted he lied about everything. He got kicked out for lying, and Schneider's actually defending this dude. Okay, fake resume, while knowingly, without question, that Biden has lied on every resume he's ever written and every speech he's ever given. Really? So, without question, John Schneider says he knows without question that Joe Biden has lied on every. I don't know if Joe Biden has ever written a resume. He was vice president. Now do you write a resume for being vice president, for being a congressman, a senator, for being a president? I don't think so. And every speech, Joe Biden has lied. Really, without question. No question about it. He doesn't cite any specifics. Just a blanket statement. Everything out of Joe Biden's mouth's a lie. Okay, and he's defending George Santos, pathological liar. Really? This is. He goes on to say this. He says, "Is it me, or does everyone see the hypocrisy here?" Oh, man. Look, there's dishonest people. There's been lying in politics since politics began. But, this blanket statement that that Biden lies about on everything he's ever said or written, without question, no specifics, just everything he's ever said and written is a lie. And it's hypocrisy, because George Santos, it's a whataboutism. All right, and there's one other thing. I didn't even write down what he said about this. This was on Newsmax. The links for this will be right down below. The George Santos Twitter comment, I have the link right down below. And I believe the link here is to Facebook for the Newsmax interview, where he said this. He said, Biden said, some Merry Christmas. I don't know what year it was. And he did not say Jesus. That's what John Schneider was all upset about. Look, you guys know, I have faith. I pray every morning. I believe Jesus is my Savior. But I'm not a Jesus freak. I don't push this on everybody else. I don't believe we should live in a theocracy. Okay, so here's what John Schneider said. He said that Joe Biden is going to have to face his maker face to face and explain why he's not running this country under Jesus Christ's rules in the Bible. Really, I kind of summed up what he said. Again, this is a democracy, not a theocracy. This country is not run by the words of the Bible. That was in the Constitution. That is kind of patriot stuff, Constitution. This country is run by our Constitution and its amendments and the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, all that good stuff. It's not a theocracy like Iran or Afghanistan. You know, that's what these Republicans are calling for? You know, to put women back in the dark ages. And anyway, that's my first video. I'll be back later with another video. Let me know what you think about John Schneider, man. Just own up to it, dude. You know, now he's trying to walk everything back, like, you know, denying that what he said, really denying what he said was a threat of violence. Oh man. All right, you guys have a good Friday.